everybody's going to be, their citizen is stripped away. No, that's not even what Trump is saying. Only to people who were born 30 days from now. You don't count. They get federal money for delivering illegal babies. That's going to be a harm to the state. They're not going to get money for delivering babies. Therefore, you have to call the babies citizens so the states can get paid. Because it would be ridiculous if we were paying to deliver illegal babies. That would be nuts for us to do that. A new order has come down from a federal court granting a temporary restraining order against President Trump. But you can see this came out from the Western District of Washington in Seattle. So we know it's going to be an adverse ruling just based on the fact of the jurisdiction. But what we're talking about is birthright citizenship and whether the 14th Amendment says that anybody who comes into American territory and just drops a baby, that baby can be a citizen. That is not what the 14th Amendment says. There's a very key phrase in there that says subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Let's go through briefly what this case originally meant, because you'll hear this name a lot. Wong Kim Ark, generally considered the preeminent case in this line of legal analysis, talking about the creation of birthright citizenship, aka jus soli, you see. And this was an appeal from the Northern District of California, and it was a very interesting case. Back in 1897, this was argued in front of the Supreme Court, and it was a 6-2 decision, so the majority came out and found accordingly. They said that a child that was born in the United States of parents of Chinese descent, because that was the big issue back then, back in San Francisco, if you had a child born and their parents were Chinese, who at the time of that child's birth, those Chinese parents were subjects of the emperor. In other words, they were Chinese citizens, but have permanent domicile and residence in the United States and are there carrying on business and not employed as a diplomat or any other official capacity. In other words, they didn't work for China. The question is, do they become a citizen? They said yes, they do become at the time of his birth a citizen of the United States. And that's by virtue of the 14th Amendment, right? All persons born or naturalized and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. But what they're telling us is that this person had permanent domicile and residence, which means those parents were here legally. They were not in violation of U.S. law here illegally. And so because they had subjected themselves to the jurisdiction of the United States and were compliant with the law, the 14th Amendment applies to them and their child was declared to be a citizen. So what happened was, this is a writ of habeas corpus. So he was being detained and he left the country in the United States, went back to China, and then came back into the country. So then at customs, when he was coming back in 1895, right? So this guy from the United States born here goes back to China, comes back. He gets stopped at the port of entry. San Francisco says, "Hey, the hell are you doing here? You're not a citizen. Get out of here." He says, "What? I am a citizen. I'm 21 years of age. I was born in San Francisco. My parents are Chinese and they're subjects of the Emperor of China." And he went back over to China and came back on a steamship. He applied for customs to come into the country. They said, "No, you're not a citizen." So then there was a hearing. The district attorney of the United States came back in and said, "Whoa, this person is not entitled to land here. He's not a citizen. That's ridiculous." They said, although he was born in San Francisco, not under the laws of California, is he a citizen? Because he is subject to the Emperor of China. He's got allegiances to them. They said, well, because the said Wong Kim Ark has been at all times by reason of his race a Chinese person, he's just been a laborer here, and so he's not entitled to land in the United States. And there were also a bunch of Chinese exclusion acts to say, no, they can't come in and work here and so on and so forth. So the case makes its way up and it was submitted to a decision of the court. They said, well, here's the deal. Wong Kim Ark was born in 1873 and his mother and father came from China. And they also note this out. Now, this is a key part of this because they're going to come in here and say that this applies to illegal aliens. His parents, Wong Kim Ark's parents, were not illegal aliens. Here's from this opinion back from the 1890s, that at the time of his said birth, Wong's parents, his mother and father were domiciled residents of the United States and had established and enjoyed a permanent domicile and residence therein at said city and county of San Francisco. Okay. They went in there to the government and they subjected themselves to the jurisdiction of the United States. They were complying with immigration and they lived in the United States for quite a while. And then they had a kid and that kid was a citizen according to the court. Now, the dissent in this case argued that that's pretty ridiculous and they should have this other concept of jus sanguinis like the rest of the world has that says you've got to actually have lineage with a parent who is a citizen of the location in which you're trying to gain citizenship. But let's take a look at what Trump's executive order actually does. So here's what Trump said when he took office. He said, look, I'm the president now. Guess what? The privilege of United States citizenship is a priceless and profound gift. And the 14th Amendment states, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, critical phrase, meaning you're not in the country illegally because you've complied with the law, you're in our jurisdiction. The left is trying to pervert this to just say, well, jurisdiction means geographic. So if you're just across this line, you can just drop a baby off and you're good. No, you've openly violated the sovereignty of the country. You are impugning our jurisdiction by entering and remaining in the country illegally. So it says, if you are subject to the jurisdiction thereof and you're born, then you're a citizen of the United States and of the states wherein they reside. Now, this provision repudiated the Dred Scott case, which misinterpreted the Constitution as permanently excluding people of African descent from being citizens solely based on their race. So it reversed that. And again, these freed people, okay, the slaves and the descendants were subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. And even the Constitution talked about them as 3/5 representation and other things. They were brought here against their will, enslaved, and subject to the United States, right? They were operating under the jurisdiction of the country involuntarily. But what they did is they misinterpreted that now, and they say anybody who's in violation of the law also counts. Trump says, but the 14th Amendment has never been interpreted to extend citizenship universally to everyone born within the United States. The 14th Amendment has always excluded from birthright citizenship persons who were born in the United States but not subject to the jurisdiction thereof. And so, consistent with this understanding, the Congress has further specified through legislation that a person born in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof is a national and a citizen of the United States at birth, generally mirroring the 14th Amendment's text. So, among the categories of individuals born in the U.S. and not subject to the jurisdiction thereof, the privilege of the United States citizenship does not automatically extend to them in a couple situations. One, when that person's mother was unlawfully present in the United States and the father was not a lawful U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident at the time of said person's birth. That is totally in alignment with what we just read in Wong Kim Ark. His parents were lawfully present in the country, residents and domiciled in San Francisco State and County. So if a mother is unlawful, that's not contemplated there. And that mother's presence in the United States at the time of the said birth was lawful but temporary, such as but not limited to, visiting the United States under the auspices of a waiver program or visiting on student work or tourist visa. And the father was not a citizen or lawful permanent resident at the time of the birth, right? So that's even broader. She had lawful presence, but it was temporary. Okay, so not a lawful permanent resident. It was a visa waiver, tourist visa, or those other things. It's temporary. So it is limited to their connection to the country. They're subject to the jurisdiction, kind of. They're here very temporarily. They're not a part of the fabric of the country because they're going back. So you can see that's what it does. Now the policy, they say it is the policy of the United States that no department or agency of the government shall issue documents recognizing U.S. citizenship or accept documents issued to local or other authorities purporting to recognize these people. If that person's mother was unlawfully present and the father was not a citizen or lawful permanent resident at the time, you're not a citizen. And when that person's mother was lawful, like when she was here lawfully, but it was temporary, and the father's not a citizen, doesn't count. You're not a citizen. And both of those, we'll see fleshed out in court, I believe are in alignment with the 14th Amendment. Now, subsection A of this section shall apply only to persons who were born within the United States after 30 days of the date of this order. So you're also going to hear a lot of screeching and hemming and hawing from the left, including in the documents we'll look at in a minute, that are saying everybody's going to be, their citizen is stripped away. No, that's not even what Trump is saying. Only to people who were born 30 days from now. You don't count. So moms and dads, figure out where you want to have these kids. Nothing in this order shall be construed to infect the entitlement of other individuals, including the children of lawful permanent residents, okay? And this is in alignment with Wong Kim Ark. If you're lawfully here and you have a kid, you're good. Enforcement saying the Secretary, the Attorney General, and DHS and Social Security. Everybody, you're not getting a Social Security card or number, not a citizen. Take all appropriate measures to ensure that the regulations of their departments comply. The heads of the departments shall also issue public guidance redefines within 30 days so everybody knows what to do. And these are the definitions signed here by the White House. January 20th, birthright citizenship is now aborted. So what you can see is they were unhappy about this. So we'll see what they sued over, suing everybody in the Trump administration, telling us this is the left, this is the onslaught that is coming down, the attacks on birthright citizenship, which Trump's order is in total alignment with Wong Kim Ark. Says the states of Washington, Arizona, and a bunch of other blue states, including the public agencies, public programs, and others, against the illegal actions of President Trump. They say his order is contrary to the plain terms of the 14th Amendment. They say he has no authority to amend the Constitution. He didn't at all. He's interpreting it appropriately. Nor is he empowered to determine who shall or shall not be citizens. The 14th Amendment is automatic. They say, look, if the citizenship stripping order is allowed to stand, there will be irreparable harm. And it's not stripping anybody of their citizenship, just to be clear, right? It's removing the granting of citizenship to new babies who are not here lawfully. Illegal babies, which is crazy. And their residents will suffer immediate and irreparable harm. They say in 2022 alone, there were 250,000 births of citizen children to non-citizen mothers without lawful status, okay? So that's about 1/2 Wyoming. And another 153,000 births to 2 undocumented parents. So it's a lot of babies. In 2020 alone, there were 7,000 U.S. citizen children born to mothers who lacked legal status, so illegal, and 4,000 children who were born to 2 parents who also lack legal status. So a lot of babies, right? This is why this is very important. And I think that this is an issue that the Republicans can actually win on in this season and in this cycle. Saying individuals who are stripped of their citizenship, again, that's not happening. They're lying. That's not what he's doing. Nobody who has citizenship now is going to lose it. It says for new babies. So just ignore their whining. The citizenship stripping order will also injure the states because funding, they're going to lose federal funding. They need more money for all their illegal babies that are being dropped in the country. Now, to prevent the president and other government's unlawful action from harming us, you should do something about this. So it's all public policy garbage. The 14th Amendment, they say, all persons born in the United States, and they actually included that. That's good. Senator Mazi Hirono, she did ... She cut that out. Pretty important phrase. She calls it the citizenship clause here and says that there is automatic conferral of citizenship on all individuals born in the United States and subject to its jurisdiction, regardless of the citizenship or immigration status of their parents. That's not what it says. Subject to the jurisdiction means these things. You just wrote it out here. It doesn't say anything in this phrase about regardless of anything. The clause was passed and ratified to respond to the Dred Scott case. And what they tell us is this is the principle of jus soli, the default rule of citizenship in the United States. It's automatic. There's nothing else that's required. And there are no exceptions to it, they say. But if they are, it's very limited. Like diplomats, children of diplomats covered by diplomatic immunity, or enemy combatants engaged in war, which some people might say that's who some of these people are. Indeed, the 14th Amendment was explicit that all persons born in the United States with only limited exceptions. And so here we go, right? This is where they're latching onto this case that we just showed you, and watch how they pervert this because they're so disgusting. The Supreme Court cemented this in their case of Wong Kim Ark. There, the Supreme Court held that a child born in the United States to non-citizen parents was entitled to automatic citizenship. Yeah, they may have been non-citizens, okay, right there, but they were lawfully domiciled and residenced. You left that part out because you're liars. The 14th Amendment, they quote the case, it affirms the ancient and fundamental rule of citizenship by birth within a territory. And watch, in the allegiance and under the protection of the country, illegal aliens are not operating in allegiance to our country. They're openly in violation of the law. So that includes children. So their own citation to this is undermining their argument, saying that there are exceptions like children of foreign sovereigns, ministers, public enemies. There's exceptions for Indian tribes and more. So this includes, they say, that it's children born, they get citizenship. Otherwise, we would be able to deny citizenship to a bunch of people like the Scottish, Irish, German, and more. In addition, the Supreme Court has also made clear that undocumented immigrants are, quote, subject to the jurisdiction. In Plyer v. Doe, which is a 1982 case, they then interpreted the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause, which is a different clause, and they explained that within its jurisdiction, right, so then they pervert the subject to the jurisdiction. They change subject to, meaning you're acquiescing to the laws of the sovereign state, to within. See how perverted that gets? That's not how that works. That's not what the 14th Amendment says. It's not within, it's subject to. So they say, well, since the Supreme Court perverted that, now the 14th Amendment says that as long as the laws apply to you, even if you violate the laws, you get the benefit of violating the laws, which is your kid gets citizenship, which is obviously a very big gift. The court said a person's initial entry into a state was unlawful, and that may be the reason to expel him, but it cannot negate the simple fact of his presence. And given the presence means you're subject to the full range of obligations imposed by the laws. And they violate the laws and they get a benefit for doing that. You see how perverse and illogical that is? It's insane. The executive branch now has accepted this for years, and not anymore. All of this, it doesn't matter that they accepted it and acted like this was the de facto rule. It's not legally correct. So I don't care about any of this. They accepted and endorsed this reading. In 1995, the Justice Department came out, wrote some stupid opinion about it, saying that if you deny citizenship to people born in this country, it would be unconstitutional on its face. How? It would be unquestionably unconstitutional. Anytime you see phrases like that in any type of writing, and they're just presuming the conclusion in their point, you can just throw it out. It's meaningless. The OLC's statement and their opinion recognize that throughout this country's history, the fundamental legal principle governing citizenship has been that birth within the territory confers citizenship. Not exactly, because Wong Kim Ark said that the parents needed to be there. They were there lawfully. The OLC, they wrote their little memo about this, and it's fine. They can write a memo. Trump's interpretation is different. He's not bound by the OLC statement on what this means. He's bound by the Constitution, and the Constitution says subject to. And so Congress reaffirmed this. They passed 8 U.S. Code 1401, which says the same damn thing. It says subject to the jurisdiction thereof. The fact that Congress reiterated this and copy and pasted the statute confirms it is subject to. It's not within the jurisdiction. Federal and state agencies rely on this fundamental and long-standing grant to do federal programs. Okay, so it's like we need this, so therefore you should keep it. The U.S. State Department is talking about applicants born in the United States, and it's like it's on all the paperwork. I mean, the Social Security also has long accepted this, that all kids born here are citizens. That's fine, they've accepted it. It's been illegal. And they say state law also agrees. For example, Arizona has a unique and complicated proof of citizenship requirement. Birth certificates play an important role, and if you screw this up, it's going to mess everything up. If the U.S. birth certificate were to stop being sufficient proof of citizenship, voter registrations would be difficult and time-consuming. Yeah, well, that's okay, because we don't want illegals voting in our state elections. So, as you can see, it's a lot of public policy complaints. President is going to hurt a lot of us. They say he acted without legal authority to do this, and he's not stripping anybody of their citizenship. Hello? It's moving forward. You don't get granted the citizenship. Trump's statements make clear he wishes to end this purely as a policy tactic to deter immigration. But this is out of bounds. What? During his most recent campaign, he made clear he was going to do this on day one, and then he did it. After 2024, he continued to state that it should be ended, and then he did it. They realize now it states effective in 30 days, no one's going to recognize U.S. citizen persons to people who are born in this category. So now they realize, like, this lawsuit is just terrible. The Constitution does not empower the president to set rules of citizenship, no, but it does empower him to execute the Constitution. He does run the executive branch, hello, and he has an obligation and a sworn oath to implement and follow the Constitution, which is exactly what he's doing. He's not amending the Constitution, stop crying. He's not granting or denying citizenship to anybody. He's enforcing the law. They keep going. They say U.S. citizens are entitled to all rights and benefits, okay, but they're not citizens, that's the thing. And nobody's being stripped, you lunatics. Stop saying it. They're not stripped of anything. They just don't get it moving forward. Lots of federal programs need it, blah, blah, blah. All right, so you see what's happening here. That is one lawsuit. Let me show you another one from the ACLU. They say birthright citizenship embodies America's most fundamental promise that all children born on our soil begin life as full and equal members of our community, regardless of their origin or status. This principle has enabled generations of children to pursue their dreams and build a stronger America. Yeah, because their parents were here legally. Now, the framers of the 14th wanted to enshrine this so that no one, not even the president, could deny children born in America their rightful place. That's not what it did. They did so with full knowledge and intent that this would protect children of immigrants, including those facing discrimination and exclusion. These were part of the Reconstruction Amendments that came after the Civil War. There was a bigger issue there than illegal immigrants. Citizenship clause says born or naturalized and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. And again, they're citing Wong Kim Ark. They say over 125 years, the Supreme Court emphatically rejected the last effort to undercut this, and the principle has remained undisturbed constitutional bedrock. I disagree. They just say that. Just because you say it doesn't make it true. Even though countless immigration immigration debates and periods of intense anti-immigration sentiment, this has been the rule. Now, for families today, birthright citizenship represents a promise that their children can achieve their full pardon as Americans. Yeah, and you're seeing these conversations pop up on the internet now where people who are in these like H-1B threads who are saying to themselves, why would I come to America and have a child there if I don't get the benefit of having my kid, have citizenship there? They're like realizing, oh, maybe they're going to turn off that spigot, right? And that's a strong incentive for people to come and do that. And maybe the American population is sick of that happening, but they want that to happen. Now, it means children born here can dream of becoming doctors and blah, 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 and more. Now, flouting the Constitution's dictates and long-standing precedent, Trump issued an executive order. And now anybody who is unlawfully present who drops a baby off is not going to count. They say this violates the citizenship clause, of course, because, obviously. And they tell us everybody's being sued just solely, again, came from Wong Kim Ark. It's got roots in English common law, which we don't care about. You can see they're citing here an English reporter from 1608. Great. We're not England. And it applies to the colonial era. Now, after the Civil War, Congress repudiated Dred Scott and said that there was citizenship for the freed people who were subject to the jurisdiction of the country, meaning they were here in a lawful status. In doing so, they strove to transform American citizenship. Now, accordingly, in Wong Kim Ark, the children of two Chinese nationals who were at the time barred under the Chinese Exclusion Acts came and they decided he was a citizen. Again, they leave it out. They're so disgusting. Chinese nationals in the country lawfully residing legally. So they say the 14th Amendment, okay, it doesn't do that at all. In 1940, Congress enacted another statute and then Trump revoked all of it. It says it will apply to persons, they're all now admitting it, to people born after 30 days from its issuance. And so, of course, they got sued. And Gail and Thomas, their child, when born, would be denied citizenship. So Gail and Thomas are coming in. Gail's pregnant. She came to the United States on a tourist visa in 2023. Has a pending application for asylum, no other current immigration status. She's pregnant, due in late February. Thomas is Gail's husband. He came in 2023 on a tourist visa, currently has an application for asylum that went to Joe Biden, but no other immigration status. He's the father. Many of these members are not lawfully here. They're not citizens and not lawful permanent residents, and they're expecting a baby. This person called Faith is pregnant. She's lived here for 20 years. She's a DACA recipient, but her and her partner, who's the father of the child, he's not a lawful resident either, not a U.S. citizen. Gordon, same situation. Jonathan, same situation. LULAC's members include all these people, and so they're just waiting to drop those babies right in America so that they can get American citizenship. Interesting. So if that happens, they're going to be denied that future right, okay? Their kids are not going to be stripped of anything. They're not stripping them of anything. They're just not going to be getting something to which they were not entitled. They do call it a priceless treasure. It is a priceless treasure. That's why we cherish it. That's why we want to protect it. We don't want people to exploit our citizenship system. So they're very upset about it, and lawsuits flying all over the place. All right, so we get the gist of what the lawsuits look like. Now let's take a look and see what the court has said on this. This one coming out of Washington, Seattle by Judge Kofenor. He says here, all right, this matter comes before the court on the emergency motion for a temporary restraining order filed by the numerous states. The states are challenging Trump's executive order entitled Protecting the Meaning and the Value of American Citizenship. Now, having considered the motion, the court grants the state's emergency restraining order and makes the following findings of fact. They say, the states face irreparable injury as a result of the signing and the implementation of the executive order. Why? Well, the order harms the states directly by forcing state agencies to lose federal funding and incur substantial costs to provide essential and legally required medical care and social services to resident children subject to the order. In other words, not deliver the babies or something? Let's see. Plaintiff states' residents are also harmed by depriving them of their constitutional right to citizenship and all the associated rights associated with those, including subjecting them to risk of deportation and family separation, depriving them of access to federal funding for medical care and eligibility for basic public benefits that prevent child poverty and promote child health and impact their education, employment, and health. So these non-citizens and their children are going to be denied public benefits, and so that's why they're citizens? Again, they're not addressing the underlying argument. They're just saying the temporary restraining order is allowed because there's going to be immediate harm, and all the harm benefits to illegals. So these harms are immediate, they're ongoing, and they're significant, and they cannot be remedied. And so a temporary restraining order is necessary so that we can hash this out later, right? This is a preliminary motion, and will have more filings. Now, Trump's people have said that they're going to vigorously fight for this. And so this is going to be a lot of fun. Here's their conclusion. They say the court has jurisdiction over this. The state's efforts to contact Trump reasonably and substantially complied with the rules. No security bond is necessary, and they have standing to bring the suit. They show that there will be a concrete and imminent injury. They say if the states cannot treat birthright citizens as that, like citizens, okay, so if the state cannot take these new babies and call them citizens, they're going to lose out on federal funds for which they're otherwise currently eligible. So they get federal money for delivering illegal babies, and that's going to be a harm to the state. They're not going to get money for delivering babies. Therefore, you have to call the babies citizens so the states can get paid. Because it would be ridiculous if we were paying to deliver illegal babies. That would be nuts for us to do that. I mean, we are doing it. We're just calling them citizens because, money. That is a sufficiently concrete and imminent injury to satisfy Article 3 standing, because they're going to lose millions of dollars of your taxpayer dollars. Plaintiffs also have standing to challenge the order because of operational costs. We have to change our forms. And so to issue a temporary restraining order, the states must establish that they'll win, that there's irreparable harm, that it's fair, and that this is in the public interest. And so he's going to give us the details. He says, first of all, there's a strong likelihood that they're going to succeed on the merits of their claims because the executive order violates Wong Kim Ark. And no, it does not. The holding there was related to permanent lawful residents, not illegals with no lawful permanent status or are here on visas. Kim Wong Ark's parents were permanent, not visa. The plaintiff states have shown that they're likely to suffer irreparable harm, and this is going to impact them because they're not going to get that money back. Yeah, your illegal immigration grift is coming to a halt. Medical care, social services, substantial administrative burdens if we have to comply with the order. We have to change our forms and stop serving illegals. Moreover, the plaintiff states will suffer immediate repercussions if this goes into place. So the balance of the equities favor the states, and so it's now ordered that Trump and the federal government is enjoined from implementing this order in any of those subsections that we just read, and it is now in effect, signed this 23rd day of January. The Department of Justice will vigorously defend President Trump's executive order, which correctly interprets the 14th Amendment of the Constitution and is in alignment, I think, with Supreme Court precedent, even if that Supreme Court precedent is bad and just solely was never the proper interpretation of it in the first place. But we look forward to presenting a full merits argument to the court and to the American people who are desperate to see our nation's laws enforced. And there is not a single country in Europe that has pure, unrestricted, just solely birthright citizenship. They've all got it connected to other things. And that's how the United States should interpret the 14th Amendment, because that is how the founders who drafted that amendment intended it to be interpreted.